friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. Not literally. That's from Julius Caesar. No, but for real, it's MC Lars. Thank you for tuning in to the second episode of the MC Lars podcast reboot. This week, as you know, features part 2 of my interview with MC Frontalot. We talk about the nature of art. We talk about touring. We talk about the creative process. It's a really interesting conversation. And as many of you know, I love the guy. So anyway, without much further ado, this is my second part of my interview with MC Frontalot. Peace. This is what I wanted to ask you, Damian. When did you first discover that you could write some great lyrics and start rapping? Did you do music before hip hop or?
Well, let's see. In high school, I went to high school with Gabi, who we mentioned, whose birthday it is today, and
in Berkeley, right where I was born,
Berkeley, California. You were born in Berkeley?
Yeah, Alta Bates.
You were born at Alta Bates?
Yeah.
Half my friends were born at Alta Bates.
Where were you born though?
I was born on Geary in San Francisco at a hospital that doesn't exist anymore.
Cool. Sorry to interrupt you.
I moved to Berkeley. See, my mom. I lived in San Francisco when I was a baby, and then Oakland when I was a larger baby, and I think I was in Albany for a little while. But by the time I started school, by the time I started kindergarten, I was in Berkeley. And I went to school there until I graduated Berkeley High. But anyway, in Berkeley High, Gabi was a songwriter.
Happy birthday, Gabi.
Happy birthday.
If he's listening.
And our friend Ben Block, who's a songwriter. And these guys were talented musicians, and we always loved, playing guitar and singing. I wrote goofy songs on the guitar. Gabi wrote intricate songs on keys and guitar.
You play guitar?
Campfire level.
I didn't know that.
I'm also way out of practice. We wrote songs and we put them on 4-track, and that's my whole interest in music. I wanted to be a writer, but all of my personal interest in music came from the technology. I was interested in home recording. I was enthralled by having a 4-track because we were teenagers. We fucking loved music and recording artists and rock stars and rappers. We were big Beatles fans. We loved the stuff that was coming out when we were in high school, which was 88 to 92. And those were some golden fucking years for hip hop hitting nationwide. You had Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, Public Enemy, NWA. Del, the first Del record came out when I was in high school. Amazingly, he's my age. He might be a year or two older than I am. But these recordings that you would buy at Tower Records were so precious to you. Plus, it cost so much.
Yeah.
To get a CD, they were $18.99, which in $1990 is $42,000. And so it was hard to get that much money together as a teenager. And we would buy these CDs, and they were very precious to us. And the idea that you could make something, they didn't sound like professionally recorded music, but it was music.
Yeah.
It was not just some people sitting around singing into the little Radio Shack thing with the 2 hold down, record and play at the same time, and it has a little built-in mic, which that sounded worse than, doing the memo function on your phone.
Of course.
Right now.
Yeah.
But 4-tracks sounded kind of fancy. They had a little preamp in them, and you could get a microphone and plug it in like a real microphone and do different tracks and do record harmonies and different instruments and get your drummer friend to come do it and all this shit. And we made songs, including all kinds of songs, but we made our own rap songs on the 4-track, and I did that all through college. Also, I had all my 4-track skills, so when I got to college, I jumped into radio where we were still putting together the carts and the PSAs on half-inch with a razor blade and tape to edit.
Wow.
And I was like, I got a 4-track. I'm going to make some fancy PSAs, immediately get myself elected to the board of directors as the PSA director. And if you're on the board of directors of the college radio station, that shit's your oyster, man. You can get a nice time slot. Anyway. And I had bands in college, a rap project with my friend Al Washington that we called Devil Card. I had there was a good rap band on campus that won the Battle of the Bands. and got to open the Spring Fling that Parliament, that P-Funk was playing. Like George Clinton and a whole fucking busload of P-Funk people.
Dang.
And they played, nobody remembers who opened that show because P-Funk was going for 4 hours, right? But like, we opened that afternoon's show. I got to go up for a couple songs with White Boy Drummer, which was the name of the good rap band on campus. They had a white drummer, so they called themselves White Boy Drummer. I wonder if that name would fly these days. Anyway.
That's cool.
I thought for sure that was going to be the highlight of my rap career.
Can't get any better than this. So Lin-Manuel Miranda went to your college, right?
Yes, after I did.
Yeah. So you
younger and much more accomplished.
So you kind of set the stage. I wonder if he like I saw him quote MC Paul Barman the other day on Twitter. I wonder if he knew about the legends of that show back then.
Doubtful. Because why would he? And there were new rap bands every year because it was a college campus. But I do wonder if he ever accidentally looked up like a Wikipedia page about famous rappers from Wesleyan and saw that there is the guy from Das Racist and me.
And didn't Adam Gorin go there too? Adam from Adam is Package?
He was there at the same time as I was. I'm pretty sure he dated my next door in the hall neighbor, Jill, when she was a freshman.
Wow.
Or maybe after.
So you met him then? Or you just kind of knew who he was?
I'm pretty sure that's the same Adam who was always hanging out on my hall with Jill.
That's cool, man.
I think so. I mean, that guy's name was Adam and looks exactly like Adam from Adam and his Package.
And he went he went to college there, so unless he has a twin who also went there.
Yeah. Just wonder if I'm getting the years wrong somehow. But anyway.
We could Google it. He's now teaching science in Philadelphia.
Didn't he just have like a little show, anniversary party show? At
Fest in Gainesville, and I got to open.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That was awesome, and I got to watch his show. And he was always such a big influence on me, because speaking of like having a compact 4-track recorder, I always loved that about him, how he was, doing that with punk rock specifically, and like taking care of it all himself. And just the thing is, like, I found when you have one device in which you put your ideas, the content and the value of your ideas and your lyrics and like that exercise means so much more, because you can't fall back on the fact that it's live music. You know what I mean? And so, like, it's watching you evolve over the years. It seems like you've always succeeded well with the live band, but it sounds like you would start a lot of the recording and writing by yourself. Is that true, or what's your process been like? So
at the beginning of an album project, I'll pull one or more of my drummer friends / bandmates into, so the band is 3 pieces plus me, right? There's bass, keys, and drums. There's various people who fill in for each other or swap in and out over the years. So there's like a bunch of people who I think of as my drummer. Although at any one point, there's usually just one drummer on stage. Okay, so I'll grab a couple drummers. We'll go in the studio. I'll lay down just tons of them improvising or playing beats that they've had in their heads or whatever, right? I'll just track a bunch of shit over metronomes. And then I'll have that as my kind of bank. And I'll chop that up, find the stuff I like, chop it up, start using that as if I were sampling records, right? Which nobody does anymore. It's too expensive. Unless you're MC Lars and you need to negotiate for The Passenger by Iggy Pop. But most of us don't embark on such an investment.
I just want to say that was a very fortunate, and we got a good deal on that sample.
Good. Glad to hear it. So I'll do that. And then almost everything else is electronic, like synths coming out of Gabi's keyboard, synths coming out of Bad Spella's ideas that he programs in Reason and Ableton, and then tons of drum machine programming. Essentially, they aren't drum machines anymore, but those are also synths. So a lot of programming from Bad Spella. Sometimes I'll work with another DJ for a track, but mostly it's me, Gabi, and Bad Spella, and we're we just work out a bunch of ideas and start hacking them together and start kind of building song shapes. And once I have like a basic like groove for a chorus and a verse for each of these sort of things, once it's taken that much shape, I will just sort of loop those and write and put down some scratch vocals, and then we'll keep refining and fixing stuff from there until it's like a nice shiny song. Or I run out of time. Then the record's like done and we're getting ready for tour. And it's like, oh shit, how are we going to arrange this into something that a 3-piece sort of funk band could play? And that's always the question. And luckily I have worked over the years with such fantastic musicians that they always make short work of it. And they're like, oh, well, we could do this or we could do that, or I know what we're going to do. And then it's like, boom. Yeah. They will vibe off each other, discuss it amongst themselves as competent instrument players, and work up great arrangements, and I will just sort of lean on their glory. I mean, once in a while they'll be going in a direction that doesn't work for me, but it's really rare that I'm directing them at all.
So it's been rare that you've performed with just a track, right? I've only maybe seen you do that once or twice.
I try not to do that just because I much prefer to not have to kind of vouch for every eye in the audience, you know? Like I don't want all that responsibility.
Yeah.
I want to go like hide my head in the corner for a minute and catch my breath if I need, and like you guys can watch Ken fucking boogieing while he does a keyboard solo or whatever. I especially love that I can like forget how the next verse starts for a quarter of a second and not ruin the song. The band can just take it for 4 bars, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, when I have to, I will perform solo. And when I can't stand to perform solo, but I can't bring the whole band, I will bring a drummer and we'll do it with all the rest of the tracks on the laptop. And that's fine too. I think that's a step up from me by myself. Most rappers are happy to and good at commanding all the attention in the room all by themselves. And I love that. I wish I were in that category, but I've never felt that way.
I think the new rappers, a lot of things they do, I found it's like, you know, like my tracks, if I have tracks, it'll just be like the hype vocals, like the TV track where it's just like the chorus and then me backing up myself on the track. Uh-huh. The trend now I've seen with young rappers is they just play the track, man. And they're just rapping and saying different words over like their Spotify playlist. You know?
Yeah. That's like a classic boring rapper move. To like just put your CD on and rap over it, and there's twice as many vocals as there's supposed to be, or maybe slightly less because you're not actually rapping the whole thing all the way through. I'm not actually totally confident you know all the words to your song. That's a tradition. That's traditional.
That's not a new thing.
We've been seeing bad rap performances do exactly that forever, haven't we? I feel like
I guess, but now it's like
nobody bats an eye.
I just feel like with the SoundCloud generation, which I think is, you know, doing creative, amazing stuff. But I think that like kids have said to me, like your vocals aren't so strong. Like I'm used to hearing the whole track behind you. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Because it's like with that generation, it's so much about the intricacies of like the little vocal nuances. You know what I mean? And like the like weird sounds.
Making funny 1960s computer noises with your mouth. Sneep, beep, beep. That kind of stuff.
And that's your chorus.
Beep, beep, beep. Beep, 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 beep.
That's it. Your album's done now. You just finished
What's
it.
that chorus? Gucci, 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 Gucci,
Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang,
Gucci gang, Gucci gang.
Yeah. That was the number one song, man.
Can we talk about the young SoundCloud rappers' aesthetic?
Yeah, but here's the thing.
They all have clown hair. And they will be in their video with hell of dudes who look like they are from a rap video out of time and place. It could be any time in the last 20 years. They're wearing a sports jersey top and some jeans, and they're showing about 2 inches of underwear, and they're like, you know, being tough dudes or whatever. They're like posing and waving some cash around or whatever. Maybe you got a firearm, whatever. And you're like on a stoop or like a street corner, and you're like dancing to the camera, and has been exactly the same shot in exactly the same rap video forever, except now the dude who's rapping has clown hair. He looks like a Raggedy Andy doll that went to an Easter egg dyeing party, and he's got Like all this, he's got clown hair, and sometimes he's got elf ears.
Sometimes always face tattoos.
That shit is nuts.
Yeah.
Clown hair and elf ears. Where did that come from? Why is that the trend? I'm so happy about that. And I love that they're just in the middle of all the like absolutely traditional looking backup like extras for your rap video. All your buddies
Yeah.
look just like they always looked, but you look like a fucking Martian. It's awesome. I love that.
Well, I think that can be attributed to the fact that like if you have Instagram or like it's all about how you look. You know, if you're like shocking and colorful, people are like, oh, click. It's all about
You're right.
the
They're
visual
just,
metrics.
They're a thumbnail of themselves.
Yeah. So you have to be, and I think you've succeeded at this because you've always been like the non-traditional. You don't like people say you don't look like a rapper back when you started, and
Right.
like, but it's always about having your brand be a visual thing. And if you could do that now, and like if you can really commit to a face tattoo and like.
Why do they all have the same clown hair though? I guess one of them did it and got hot, and then everyone was like, that's just the way rappers look now?
Yeah, XXXTentacion was one of the first guys to do that style.
Huh.
And then
He's the one with the elf ears, isn't he?
I don't know.
There's more than one with elf ears.
Maybe it's a generation.
It is so funny to me. Because that is dorky as fuck to go in public with elf ears.
So you're saying they put on like fake ears?
Yes!
So-
elf ear! You haven't noticed that.
I was just kind of going along with it, but I don't really know. I can't think of specifically ever seeing it.
Oh, man. I wish I knew which one I was thinking of who had the elf
have to
ears.
Google it
Where's
later.
the elf ears? It's hard because they literally all have the same clown hair.
Yeah.
These dudes.
But, you know, it's like they're really prolific and really hardworking. And I think the challenge for us is as we get older is to like, you know, you never want to be like, oh, these kids today, back when I was young.
2/3 of them are going to die, unfortunately, from heroin overdoses. You can
Right.
tell by the way they rap. Like, literally all of them are opiate addicts.
Well, that's another element, right?
And they're taking pills, I assume, and not, like, traditional heroin. But,
Yeah.
like, they all got the... it's like, you know, remember Bob Dylan and Perry Farrell and fucking William S.
Kurt
Burroughs?
Cobain.
Like, you have that heroin talk.
Yeah.
But that's what mumble rap is.
Did
It's
you-
just heroin voice.
Did you ever listen to Lil Peep, the dude who died in Arizona last year?
I did not.
I always liked his style because he sang, you know?
Oh,
He
yeah.
was like singing over this stuff and it was like beautiful voice. But yeah, like that's another thing about, that's the oxy epidemic. You know what I mean? That's like, you hear that in hip hop and that's, as old people, that's sad because we remember a time when that wasn't so present, you know?
It was not...
If at all.
It was not super trendy in our lifetimes to be on heroin, I think, until like the last 7 or 8 years.
Because there's a lot of pain, right? I mean, there's a lot of...
It just kills you at a really startling rate. And so, like, you know, there's generally a prohibition on that, but that makes you cool if you're living
Right.
dangerously. So, like, of course, young rock stars... I mean, there was a big heroin moment in the early 70s, right? Late 60s, early 70s. And like rock stars were always on heroin and like, that was cool. They're going to live forever. Let them do the thing that's like, makes them almost certain to die. And then a lot of them died.
Yeah. And I think that was the whole thing with Lil Peep was like, well, his agent or someone, I don't want to misquote, but they said, I've been waiting for this call for a year, you know, and that you can't enable your artists. If you know your artist is to popping those pills and it's glorified in the culture.
If that's, you know, if rapping about drug abuse is going to sell records, then your management is not going to counsel you against it.
Exactly.
It's not going to happen, buddy. That's that's the devil's bargain that you made, having an agent.
Well, speaking of good reasons not to have an agent or a manager, I remember something you said, like, I think you said it in Columbus on our tour. You said, so many people were coming to see us, and I was like, what's with this, Damian? And you were like, if you exist in a subculture that never is concerned with being cool, it's never going to go out of fashion.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
And that's such a cynical calculation, but it's real. And honestly, I kind of modeled that originally on one of my idols, Tom Waits, because he in the 1980s, when you were a glimmer in your daddy's fishbowl, or whatever the expression is, and I was a little elementary school kid, all the records sounded the same. And I mean, no, there was a great variety of records and there were different genres that were popular, but in every radio record that wasn't a rap record, and really, you know, in the 80s, outside of I think New York, rap didn't get onto the radio. So in all radio records in the 80s, the snare is like, has all this like fucking reverb on it. Sounds like it's in a stadium. And the kick is like this like, it's this top heavy, tinny kind of thump that makes me irritated, but only if I listen to it like that. If I just listen to the song, I love it because it brings me back to way back when. But my point is, you can listen to almost any pop recording and tell whether or not it is from 1981 to 1988 just based on how the drum is produced, drum is mixed, like what effects are on that snare. They all sounded the same. And that was the trend in pop music production. And that was how all those fucking records sounded. And also the synths are pretty easy to like pick out by era because that was like a moment when like electronic synths exploded and all the bands were using them.
Yeah.
So like 80s records, so easy to pick out. And over the course of that decade, Tom Waits made these like 5 or 6 records that you could not put in any era. Like they could have come from so many different times in American music. And it's not because he's doing like genre pastiche from different decades, different earlier decades, although he does some like folk and jazz stuff. It's particularly like that run Swordfish Trombone, Frank's Wild Years, Rain Dogs, and Bone Machine. Those records are just like so just different and new. And they are made of like a bunch of familiar elements, but they're so like kind of off kilter. They will never sound dated to my ear. I'm a kind of a fanboy, but they will never sound dated to my ear. And they sound so different than everything else that came out in the 80s. Except for one song. The original recording of Downtown Train off of Rain Dogs is like a legit of that year pop production.
Yeah.
And it sounds like an 80s song. And you're like, it stands way the fuck out from all his catalog. It was
the one A&R was excited
about.
Yeah,
I think the record company was probably like, listen, could we have our guy mix one of these things, please? Just, Tom, every year you do this to us and we can't sell any records. Please do help me out. And he's like, all right, I'll give you Downtown Train. I don't care for that one anyway. But
pretty good impression.
Which then Rod Stewart had a hit with later. By
he covered it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, that was my model, I think, going into hip-hop. I was like, I could try to make a record that sounds like a legit hip-hop record in a way that's familiar to your ear. Just like right now, I could try to make something, I could probably pretty easily make something that sounds like one of these Fruity Loops SoundCloud rappers' boring-ass grooves. But in most cases, with stuff that's popular on the radio, like I would not be able to emulate it exactly. It wouldn't sound quite right. It would sound like someone trying and not quite pulling it off because they don't have the expertise and they don't have the money to buy the expertise.
Yeah.
And so I would have sort of slightly failed on that front. Plus, it would sound dated in the ear. Like, what if I just actively ignore those urges, the urges to like emulate the thing that sounds cool? Because, you know, the stuff that's trendy sounds cool to everyone's ear, including mine. It's like, oh yeah, that sounds new and fresh, even though I've like heard it 50 times from 50 different artists. Weirdly, that sounds like very now right now.
Yeah.
You know, 7 years ago, it would have been dubstep or whatever. It's like, oh, that sounds futuristic right now. But wait a minute, like 2 years from now, it's going to be in car commercials. What's my record going to sound like then?
Yeah.
It's going to sound like something that should be in a car commercial. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think for my style, I've always like done a little more like parody or like connecting to other genres or like referencing certain things. And like, like my crunk song definitely is dated now and definitely is like problematic because it runs the risk of being parody in a way that's like, I don't know. It feels like it's like if you emulate something and you're doing it in a way that's not perfect, it's disrespectful. Maybe I found
potentially, right?
Yeah. And so it's like, so you're saying that like Tom Waits, you wanted to build your own style and your own sound. You weren't trying to be hip hop in a specific way, but I would also argue that you have like De La Soul influences and like a lot of like old school golden era hip hop.
I think a lot of my stuff probably sounds like early 90s hip hop in some way, just because that's, how I cut my teeth as a listener, and that'll just always be what I naturally kind of am drawn toward as a producer. So yeah, it's not like I will ever lay claim to a vision of my own music or to have transcended space and time like I wanted to, right? But that has always, if I ever feel like myself trying to do the thing that I heard recently, I will stop myself and remind myself to try and do the opposite.
That's cool.
And it's not to be cool, but it's just to like save myself from the like ravages of fucking time marching onward, which is inevitably is going to do.
And it works when you are able to then also like you have themes that are like old school, like It's Pitch Dark. That's the name of the song, right?
Yeah.
It's like you talk about that old school game, which people remember, right? It's always nostalgic.
I mean, there's one in particular called Zork, but it's that song is about that whole kind of game where there was no graphics and you were just kind of in an interactive story with the writer, like typing what you do and then the game tells you what happens.
So next thing, and this, I want to talk about this for a second, then we'll wrap up about what's going on for the rest of the year for you. I want to talk about that moment when you've talked about this in a million interviews, when you first coined, what's the word, portmanteau of nerdcore and hardcore. Well, you created nerdcore as a genre name. Like that moment, you talk about here's a story as I remember you telling a million times. You're rapping into your computer. You had a mic set up. You had a Boba Fett action figure on your monitor, and you're like,
a Yoda.
Yoda. Okay, you tell it. Am I kind of on the right path? You saw your Star Wars figure, and you're like, I'm fronting, and I'm a nerdy guy, and I'm hardcore. This is almost like this could be considered nerdcore.
I did definitely have Star Wars toys in that room.
Okay.
I would probably made up the part where I was looking at them when I came up with it. They were definitely like, I was surrounded by my normal just nerd bullshit that I like to surround myself with.
And what year was this?
It comforts me. This is the first half of 2000.
Okay.
So I had been thrilled as a 4-track user. I was just talking with Creative Mindframe about this at the PAX booth the other day about like he's 30 years old and he couldn't believe the struggle we used to do to try and make anything with a 4-track. I was telling him how it works and he was just like, "What?"
Yeah.
But that's how we used to do it. And then I'd been working in the computer, but it was like you would pull up a track and then you would mix paste with another thing. So I was like, take my old 4-track stuff and bring it in like a track at a time and then try and and I had new effects, right? In the computer audio station I could like mess with but it was like guess and check, and you're like stepping backwards and taking the files again, being like, okay, I'll try the reverb a little different and then I'll mix paste them together. And it was...
So you couldn't monitor it.
It was also terrible. Yeah, there was not multi-tracking, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like the new version of Cool Edit Pro came out, and that was the first time I saw some software that, like, you were able to do this stuff with off-board hardware in Pro Tools prior to that, but this was the first time that you and your like semi-pro grade sound card and Cool Edit Pro, which I'll admit in my early 20s I was just pirating, you could take these things that you already had and have suddenly a CD quality multi-track studio. And that was holy shit. There wasn't inline effects yet. You were still doing a lot of kind of stepping and guess and checking while applying effects. But you could like mute that one and try it again and then A/B those. And like they were all your tracks were in the mix with their volume levels and pans and stuff.
Was there like latency when you tracked to like a drum or something, or was it pretty instant?
There was, it's funny, the cards kind of worked better in terms of latency than they do these days, but They were, because they would go straight into your PCI bus on your motherboard. But they were much worse at knowing what their own latency was and automatically, like you no longer have to measure latency.
Right.
Back then I had to point a mic at the speaker, play one track, record it, and see what the exact offset was, run that about 50 times to make sure I was getting like a solid consistency, and then go in somewhere in Cool Edit, I think there was like, you could do it like by number of samples and tell it exactly how much to offset all incoming recording from that card.
And then that would
automatically from then on, like once you had it perfectly measured and you told it what it was, then it would automatically like deal with it from then on.
Cool.
Now it just works. Like the hardware has figured out how to tell what I assume it's just syncing up a couple of different clocks so that it can put everything back together as it comes in. But anyway, where were we?
So you're no. So
okay. So multi-tracking works, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, and I was so excited. And like that night, I made a rap song called "Speed Queen."
And is that on the first record?
It's not on a record.
Okay.
There's an old demo of it. I was like going through my CD folder. I was like, what am I gonna? Because I couldn't. I'd been doing like recording all through college and all that 4-track stuff and all kinds of genre stuff because we would write these rock musicals, which were actually like not just rock and roll. There were tons of genres, a lot of pastiche stuff. But we would write these and perform them in the summers, Gabi and I and a bunch of other folks we knew from the East Bay. So who knows what I would have recorded if it were the middle of the day and some other friends were available. But it was like nighttime. There was nobody else to work with. Nobody to play any instruments for me. So I'm like, well, I'm going to make a hip-hop track with samples. So I'm like going through my CD thing. I pull out like the Louis Prima and the Fiona Apple for Buonasera and Sleep to Dream. I thought those were thematically related. So I wrote a song about methamphetamine and not sleeping over those two samples, and like hacked it all together and made the first rap song I made. And I went on vacation right after that in the Middle East, and I was coming down Mount Sinai, smoking this terrible joint that these Coptic Christians had sold me down at the youth hostel. And I was like, I shall not front a little because I'm front a lot. I climbed Mount Sinai and got high at the top.
Oh, wow.
I thought that was... So that was when I decided I would use the name MC Frontalot.
So say the line one more time, if you don't mind.
I shall not front a little because I'm front a lot. I climbed Mount Sinai and got high at the top.
So you named yourself in that track.
I started using that name in that track. I think I had a photograph that my friend Robin Gonzalez had taken of me rapping with one of Gabi's bands in like at Blake's maybe on Telegraph in Berkeley.
Of course.
Like maybe a year earlier, and I had taken a whiteout pen and I thought I looked like a douche in the picture, and I'd written MC Frontalot's Raptacular Hip Hop Fun Fest on the photograph in whiteout pen as an insult to myself. But then I remembered that as I was smoking pot, walking down this mountain, and where the 10 Commandments had come from.
Yeah, I was going to say that's that's very poetic. I didn't realize that.
That's my one pot smoking song, a nod to the 90s, which were then over. So I recorded that song when I got home. So that was probably January, February of 2000. I think I did one more song where I called myself MC Frontalot, and then I think the fourth one was nerdcore hip hop. So I'm like, it was fun. I kept doing it, and I was like, I am making raps by myself into my computer, and I'm interested in this because I'm like psyched about my Delta 1010 sound card more than I am psyched about like my ability to rap or make beats.
Right.
I'm like fascinated with my ability to like simulate what professional music sounds like and what professional musicians sound like using my computer skills. Like that's fucking dorky. That's not why people do this. So I'm going to call it nerdcore hip hop just for the course of one song. But as soon as I finished the song, I was like, that's clearly going to be a salient bit of cultural nonsense. I bet I should just keep using that and have it be my brand. Because the job I was doing back then was like we would have branding meetings and shit. Like I was writing ad banners and contests for websites. It was the first .com bubble.
Yeah.
And there was all this money flying around in San Francisco, and I was like soaking it up. I would smoke pot and hang out in the dog park all day in DuBose Triangle and like write ad banner jokes for like $75 an hour. Like that was my job.
Yeah.
Wow. But then that left me plenty of time to like make raps. So like I had a little branding meeting with myself, and I'm like, I'm going to keep this nerd theme because that's me. Like so now suddenly
And that was the Bay Area then too. I mean,
Yeah.
nerd to be.
It was like, it was great to be a nerd right then, because like the money was flying out of, like, all of the fucking communication managers from Waukegan were coming into town and getting plenty of jobs. But if you were at all nerdy and knew how to use any kind of software, advanced software proficiently, you definitely were going to have a fancy ass job during the first .com bubble.
It's interesting because Soul from Anticon, I think I remember here, like when I talked to him, he moved to the Bay Area and he was doing something similar, like doing web design or something. But at night he was starting and running Anticon, and it would have been like the
That's
same
way more
era.
ambitious. See, he was thinking of himself as a musician. I was thinking of myself as a home and recording enthusiast.
Who liked poetry, who liked rap.
Yeah. Oh, I loved writing, and of
Yeah.
course, I love rap music.
You were English major too, right?
Yeah. And I didn't think anyone would want to hear me or think of me as a real musician. And I made this web page where, like, the joke was I'm concealing my identity from everyone. Like, there was a photo gallery of other rappers, like famous rappers, with their faces blurred out. You know, like Eminem and Biggie Smalls and.
You're almost like MC Hawking, like this. Who is this person, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, he and I hooked up real early in this process, like 2001, 2002.
And isn't he on Nerdcore Rising?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because he was doing something very similar. It was like he had it was a project more than like an idea of a music career.
Yeah.
But like, you know, I had control over some web servers, and
You bought the domain, huh?
I put the songs up, and Penny Arcade noticed them, and eventually the fan base developed to the point where I got rid of my web clients and
And here we
have
are.
fans instead. I tell everyone, it's better to have fans than clients. Highly recommend it.
Because they are more actively waiting. They're more passionate.
So you don't have to have phone meetings with them where they tell you to change everything that you just worked on all night.
Well, that's if your fans are if you have major label fans, you know, that's you have to put up with a lot of that, and you have the gamble of whether it's going to work or not.
That's true. I think you're right.
I think one of the things you said that's interesting is like the technology is what drove you and inspired you and made you realize you could do this. And I think when we look at the history of hip hop, like Kool Herc with the break beat and like Grand Wizard Theodore and scratching and moving on with like sampling technology, hip hop, every moment in hip hop has been about some artistic person being fascinated with the technology.
That's very true.
And I think that's like in a way that then connects with that tradition and where you were 20 years ago in the times frame of things, like till now. I think it's just real cool that like people took notice, and you took advantage of that moment. And it was like, when did you first realize that, oh shoot, I get recognized in public? When did that happen? Because I've been with this guy with you many times, and it's happened.
Right. It's funny. It doesn't happen that much anymore because I've been slowed down so much. But when the height of that was probably when the movie was playing around in like Nagin. So this woman, Nagin Farsad, directed a feature doc about me and my band when we went on our first tour in 2006. And that came out in 2008. And it played at the film festival in South by, and then she kind of toured it around the country and played it at art houses for like short engagements.
And it ended up on Netflix for
And then
a
it was
long
on
time.
Netflix for a long time.
Yeah.
And I was touring fairly often around then, 2008, 2009, 2010. And I was like, you know, I had like a commercial on G4, as did you. Like that was the most my face was kind of out there.
And there was a lot of press.
Particularly from and there was a lot of press. It was before
Magazine press.
It was before like the thing that everyone now like understands perfectly well, where like nerd culture bullshit is just top money pop culture stuff, like the superhero movies, and Lord of the Rings, for God's sake. There's a Star Wars every year.
Ready Player One, right?
Right. So like nerd culture stuff is no longer remarkable or interesting in and of itself. Like someone having an idea to do something specifically and intentionally situated inside of nerd culture that previously hadn't been raises zero eyebrows, and no competent press person on earth would approach that as though it were a fascinating new idea that they had a scoop about. Right. But in the mid-aughts, the opposite was true. Like every journalist who heard about it was like, "What? Oh my God, I could write a low effort piece about that and immediately get it past my editor and fucking go to Cabo for the weekend," or what. I don't know what journalists used to do back when print journalism paid money, but it was really easy to get covered for a while.
Because it was a surprising headline. Nerds
It just
rapping?
sounded like a good idea, to people. They're like, "Oh, nerdcore hip hop. Oh, I get it. I understand it. You've said it. As soon as you said it, I understood it. Therefore, it will be easy to write my article about it, and no one will be confused."
And they ran a picture of you looking like just looking like you do, handsome and unique, but like it's like automatically a surprising thing.
So anyway, that wore off because, ironically, the whole culture shaped itself around nerdcore.
Why do you think that happened? Just because technology got so fast? Because I mean, I heard Weird Al talks about why White and Nerdy was such a big hit for him is because when everyone started to realize that the nerd culture was something cool, but like, how did it go?
Replace cool with profitable, I think.
Sure,
is about it. Like blame Sam Raimi, and I was a horror movie nerd in 7th grade, 8th grade, and he made the movie.
Did he do Spider-Man too?
He did Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, and Spider-Man 3. And when Spider-Man made $1 zillion, that was when the whole movie industry was like, wait a minute, we're going to focus all of our big guns on superheroes and see if we can like ride this trend for 2 years or whatever. But then it just never went away.
Right.
And then Disney bought Star Wars and was like, oh, I feel like 6 of these movies every 2.5 decades is not fast enough. We're going to put one out every year.
Right.
And let's, while we're at it, let's have another like 12 to 13 hours of Hobbit movies. And, let's have 9 different Marvel properties on TV. And ironically, I think comic books themselves are no more popular than they've ever been. They did not get swept up into the huge money machine. But TV and movies, which is the meat of our culture.
And I guess games based on these properties too.
And of course, gaming. I'll tell you, when phones came out is when gaming leapt out of the just nerdy part of our culture and into everybody's pocket. And it's things that like the snobby and shitheady gamers like despise, like the casual games. That turned everybody into a video game aficionado, right? Like Candy Crush is a video game. You turn your nose up at it, but it's a video game.
Yeah,
and those people are gamers, and they are gaming. And the person playing poker obsessively is a gamer, and he's gaming. Nobody's ever argued with that. He doesn't even have a piece of electronics involved.
You're saying like on
Candy
the card
Crush
table.
is gambling, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
but on a card table.
So the culture's just shifted, but like you were a maverick and on the front of the wave.
I was lucky to be a little ahead of the curve on that, I guess.
Yeah, and I feel that way too. Like in that we were different scenes, but when we met, we're both like, oh, we both have this authentic love for music and rap, and we're both willing to get in a van and put up with each other and for 9 weeks and drive all over the country and slang shirts. So we did that song about how like we're really in the t-shirt business.
Yes, lamenting the fact that we have to be good at being t-shirt salesmen when we wish we could just be good at rapping.
Well, now we're good at podcasting. Well, you always have been.
I'm okay at being on people's podcasts. I've never had one of my own.
Well, it's
always the bridesmaid.
You've got an album to make, and on that, any plans for the rest of the year? I'm sure you're doing PAX.
Before that, even I'm going on JoCo cruise.
Oh yeah, cool.
In February, if you, the listener, have a huge amount of money and intended already to spend it on a lavish vacation at sea, you should definitely decide to come on this nerd cruise and pick that one. 'Cause all other cruises, as far as I can tell, are just stupid. But this one's fun.
That does sound cool.
Full of comedians and musicians, all of whom are dorky. And Jonathan Colton, of course, the headliner of it. Then I've got, I don't know, South by probably, pretty sure. Hopefully I can get to do some more PAXs PAXs are like way more fun when I have a new album and people are coming to my booth on a regular basis. No,
I feel you.
No sitting around trying to bark them down in the middle of the afternoon lull. What else? Oh, I'm going to Anchorage.
Oh, cool. Where are you playing there?
I can't remember the name of the festival. I think it has the word nerd in it.
Cool.
They do comedy and music. In fact, maybe you know because I think they brought you up for it.
Is it
recently?
Coots? Is Sarah Peterson the agent?
Probably, yes.
Yeah. I did. I played it with Chris a few years ago, and then I did it myself last year. It's pretty great. They're awesome up there, man.
Sweet.
And
I've never been to that state.
I shout out to Alaska, and I've all the people who've supported and loved the nerd rap over the years up there. You'll have fun, and try to, like, if you can, try to see if they can take you, like, if you go a little bit north of the city, you're like instantly in the wilderness. Ooh. It's gorgeous.
Have you ever been on a helicopter, Andrew?
No.
Me neither. Do you think I could take one of those?
Actually, I have, and I did it in Alaska. Actually, it was a water plane.
A biplane?
Biplane through the mountains.
On the water. Okay, sweet. Should I do that instead of the helicopter ride through the mountains?
Yeah, that would be tight. I know you can do it. There's some that... I was in Homer. I did a TEDx talk there, and we did a tour around... It's called the Harding Ice Field. It was called Grewing Glacier. But, like, you can just pay, and they'll take you up, and it's really fun. So you should do that. Have fun in Alaska.
Thank you.
Proud of you, man.
And then I want to get on the road.
That sounds cool.
One more time before my knees completely go.
So what are you doing in the fall? Like, maybe do some shows, or I don't know. Or
yeah, you want to go? Maybe do like a big long run this fall.
Maybe we can talk to Schaefer and Raheem, see what they're thinking.
Yeah, because we got to get rid of the remaining shirts that have all 4 of our heads on them in a fucking full circle.
We didn't do the West Coast. We didn't do the Midwest. So there's some cities.
We didn't do shit. We played. We played 9 shows.
I'm trying to do
in 9 nights, and then we stopped as though we had fulfilled our obligation to touring.
A test run.
We had not.
I want to do like 5 or 6 weeks this fall, but I want to break them up. You know what I mean?
Sounds great to me.
And I think we could figure out. Anyway, this is an exclusive, but Schaefer seemed down. I got to talk to Raheem, see what he's up to. He and I finished a record, and we're trying to like figure out how we're going to put it out and promote it. And yeah, I mean, I think it would be really cool. So, all right, well, I'll announce and we'll discuss what we can do, but that would be tight.
Sweet. All right, you heard it here first, kids.
And what's the new record called, or do you want to wait?
The new record's called "Internet Sucks." You can play the rough draft of the title track right now on your podcast if you want.
Oh, that would be an honor.
All right.
All right, we'll end with this Damian's demo. Thank you so much for being on the show, man. Thanks for your time. And
thanks for having me.
We'll see you on the road. Peace.
Peace.
You are listening to a preview. Sometimes I wish I loved you. Sometimes I don't know what to do. Sometimes I wish I loved you. Sometimes I don't know what to do.
Sometimes I look back on our earliest love affairs. I had so many hairs, and you were made of everyone everywhere, or so I imagined. Actually, just a bunch of me types typing into mud games, geeking on the weeknights, hunting drug recipe text files with a gopher client. You're supposed to be studying, oh no, but you're so defiant. It was giant Usenet porn over the dial-up, over the rickety PBX, which might go silent. Internet was precious to me, and it remains so, but it isn't like in the early days. The achy pains grow ever more insistent. They get inside my melon. They tell me pretty subtly, I mean, besides the yelling, that I don't love you anymore. Internet, you used to be a safe home for my nerd heart and my intellect. Now you got so much hate that you just gotta interject. Now you got too many chefs up in your kitchenette.
Sometimes I wish I loved you. Sometimes I don't know what to do. Sometimes I wish I loved you. Sometimes I don't know what to do.
Sometimes I'm overjoyed this thing got democratized. Anybody with a pocket phone can lend a voice against those who talk the lies. Don't need to know how the packets work or any server status. Just click the big user-friendly button that fills my heart with gladness, and stop pressing sing the one that posts your unrelenting whackness. Yeah, I know how to mute and unfriend, even got some practice, but how exactly is one supposed to mute the fact that a tenth of our netizens, when offered the chance to shit on anything, pull down pants without hesitance, without any sense of justice, pathos, kindness, or decency? Now, having to listen to assholes, half of what online means to me, and it seems to be this isn't brand new. Some people always suck. More trolls per capita, probably 1989 CompuServe. But these days, like all the worst people on earth, formed a club just to light ugliness up and take one drag and proceed to stub it out in my eye by way of my once beloved internet. Could a solution lurk that hasn't been discovered in it yet?
Sometimes I wish I loved you. Sometimes I don't know what to do. Sometimes I wish I loved you. Sometimes I don't know what to do. Sometimes I wish I loved you.
Surprise! We are going on the road. We actually did this podcast before we had our tour plan, so that's pretty tight. You can come see us this October. For tour dates and tickets, check out nerdcoretour.com, baby. And I wanted to end with last week I ended with OG Original Gamer. I wanted to end with another collab. This was a remix of a song I did for Frontalot's album, Captains of Industry, and then I redid it for my Indie Rocket Science mixtape over the Wiz Khalifa Black and Yellow beat. So this became Black and Yellow t-shirts. Thank you all for listening. MCLars.com, Patreon.com/MCLars for new music, and we'll see you next week. We've got Schaefer the Dark Lord.
Hey Lars, how do you make any money if you give away your mixtape for free?
I'm really glad you asked, Ollie. We've got t-shirts there.
Black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow.
You know what they are.
Black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow.
My boyfriend is always managing his vocal takes, playing up his nerd persona every day he integrates. You wanna hear a rap about a game from 82? Good news, MC Frontalot's got songs for you. For the rhymes that he drops pretty hot, make him rock with the style he concocts. Nerdcore, hip-hop, flashlight on his head, cause homeboy went and started it. Grabbing your allowances, he knows how to market it.
My man Lars has got the talent and he flaunts it, and he drops fat hits every 100th concept. The onset of his rapping is blunt. It beats you up in the manner that he called post-punk. You know the fans can't get enough, always holler for more. Think they're even louder than they were before the previous encore. Just hope they let him off stage soon. Vital business in the back where the hoodies are strewn. Come on.
Yeah, bro, we got t-shirts, and they're
Black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow.
yeah, dude, different colors, such as
Green and purple, green and purple, green and purple, green and
this is
purple.
indie rocket science, and it's
Horus Records, Horus Records, Horus Records, Horus Records.
good luck chasing royalties, Mr.
Wiz Khalifa, Wiz Khalifa, Wiz Khalifa, Wiz
You try to
Khalifa.
sell music, they look at you funny. It's not a transaction that necessitates money, not with the true cunning of the kids in the know. But you look at them cheering, notice what? They don't sew. Don't go to the print shop and silk screen their own, yet they're always eating something to cover the torso. That's why MC Lars and I provide a product set atop high fashion inventory.
You got it, costume glasses, mouse pads, robot USBs, captains are we.
Of what?
Industry, Rockefeller, Adam Smith, rock a cellar just like this, rock a crowd of rowdy kids. So Frontalot, tell me this, is it all about the Washingtons or all about the art? Indie rap, we're into that, following our hearts, but part of the job, I mean the other part from Karen, is taking t-shirt money like we're modern robber barons. Yeah, bro, we got t-shirts, and they're
Black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow.
yeah, dude, different colors, such as
White and orange, white and orange, white and orange, white and
this
orange.
is indie rocket science, and it's
Horus Records, Horus Records, Horus Records, Horus Records.
good luck chasing royalties, Mr.
Wiz Khalifa, Wiz Khalifa, Wiz Khalifa, Wiz Khalifa.
Well, we know every fabric weight, every dropship price, every line screen density, designs are precise.
Cotton woven so nice, blind eyes to child labor. You as the consumer are the lucky money saver.
And we savor all your savvy as it leads you to our wares. Up in the gilded age of geekery, we so sneakily prepared this foolproof method of making just the shirts you want. With my top hat and my monocle and your money I abscond.
You see Horus Records harvesting the forest near your home for the paper in the liner notes of every disc you own. You should have known that our sweatshirts were pure baby seal. Go ahead and and treat yourself. You love the way it feels.
The appeals of the audience.
Get back on stage, where you at?
By the merch booth trying to get paid. Got 100 people covered.
Though their arms stay bare.
The only way
we get to do it,
check the logos they wear. Because
guess what? At the merch booth, we got
shirts and hoodies, shirts and hoodies, shirts and hoodies, shirts and hoodies.
Please stop, come and buy stuff. We need
health insurance, health insurance, health insurance, health insurance.
This is indeed rocket science, and it's
Horus Records, Horus Records, Horus Records,